The alarm bells rang through the Galactic Monitoring Station Kepler 7 at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Galactic Standard Time. Senior Scanner Vexhai lifted his 4 eyes from his coffee cup and looked at the blinking red lights on his control panel. His long blue fingers moved quickly across the buttons as he tried to figure out what was happening. Vexhai had been working at this job for 23 years. He was a Xanthari, a race known for being very careful and precise. His people had 4 eyes that could see many different types of light, making them perfect for scanning deep space. In all his years of work, he had never seen readings like this. The main screen showed a picture of the Xerian Nebula, a huge cloud of colorful gas and dust that stretched across several light-years of space. Most of the nebula was beautiful, but harmless. However, at its center was something that made every species in the galaxy afraid: the Forbidden Zone. The Forbidden Zone was exactly what its name suggested. Nobody was allowed to go there. Any ship that tried to enter was destroyed within minutes. The ancient machines that guarded the zone had been there for thousands of years, left behind by a mysterious race called the Progenitors. These machines did not care who you were or why you wanted to enter. They simply destroyed everything that came too close. But now, according to his instruments, there was something impossible sitting right in the middle of the Forbidden Zone. Vexhai ran the scan 3 more times, checking every setting and calibration. The results were always the same. There was a ship in the Forbidden Zone. Not just any ship, but a human ship. Vexhai had met humans before. They were a young species that had only joined galactic society about 100 years ago. They were small, soft creatures with only 2 eyes and no natural weapons or special abilities. Their technology was basic compared to most other races. They could not even travel faster than light without using the relay gates that other species had built for them. The idea that a human ship could survive in the Forbidden Zone was like saying that a paper airplane could fly through a hurricane and come out perfectly fine. Vexhai called his supervisor immediately. Within minutes, Captain Zethara of the hegemony warship Inevitable Justice was looking at the same impossible readings. Captain Zethara was a Saurian, a race that looked somewhat like the ancient dinosaurs from Earth. She had green scales, sharp teeth, and yellow eyes that missed nothing. "This has to be a mistake," Captain Zethara said, her clawed fingers tapping on her command chair. "Run every test you have. Check for sensor errors, equipment failure, anything that could explain this." But no matter how many tests they ran, the answer was always the same. There was definitely a human ship sitting in the Forbidden Zone, and somehow it was still in one piece. The ship was sending out a weak distress signal, the kind that meant the crew was still alive but in serious trouble. The signal was definitely human. It used their language and their communication protocols. The ship's computer systems were still working, which meant the hull had not been breached. Word of the discovery spread quickly through the monitoring station. Soon, every important person in the sector knew about it. The news caused panic among some species and disbelief among others. How could humans, of all races, survive where even the mighty hegemony battle fleets feared to go? Dr. Korthak, a senior scientist from the Hegemony Science Division, arrived at the station 6 hours later. He was an old Saurian with many scars from his years of dangerous research. He had studied progenitor artifacts for most of his life, and knew more about them than almost anyone else in the galaxy. "Show me everything," Dr. Korthak demanded as he looked at the scan results. His yellow eyes grew wide as he read the data. "This should not be possible. The energy fields in that zone tear apart matter at the atomic level. Nothing survives. There. Nothing." The human ship was called the Lucky Break, according to its identification beacon. It was a simple cargo freighter, the kind used for moving goods between planets. The ship was about 200 years old by human standards, which made it ancient and unreliable by galactic standards. Its hull showed damage from what looked like weapon strikes, but the ship was still holding together, More disturbing was what the deep scans revealed about the Forbidden Zone itself. The ancient progenitor machines that guarded the area were still active, but they seemed to be ignoring the human ship. These machines had destroyed hegemony battle cruisers without hesitation, yet they let a tiny human freighter sit there undisturbed. Captain Zethara tried to contact the human ship directly, but the interference from the Forbidden Zone made communication impossible. All they could hear was static mixed with fragments of human voices calling for help. As news of the discovery reached the highest levels of galactic government, emergency meetings were called on a dozen different worlds. The Galactic Council had spent centuries maintaining the blockade around progenitor sites like the Forbidden Zone. The idea that humans could somehow bypass these ancient defenses was terrifying to many species. Some council members suggested that the humans had secretly developed new technology that could defeat progenitor weapons. Others believed it was impossible, and that the whole thing was some kind of trick or illusion. A few worried voices suggested something much worse, that humans might be connected to the progenitors in ways nobody understood. Back at the monitoring station, Vex High continued watching the human ship through his instruments. Every few hours, the lucky brake would move slightly, as if it was drifting in some invisible current. But there were no energy readings that could explain the movement. It was as if the ship was being gently guided by forces that did not show up on any scanner. The most frightening part was that the progenitor machines in the Forbidden Zone were becoming more active. Energy readings throughout the nebula were increasing, and some of the ancient structures were powering up systems that had been dormant for thousands of years. It was as if the presence of the human ship was waking something up. Dr. Korthak spent hours studying every piece of data they had about humans. Their biology was unremarkable. They had no psychic powers, no natural resistance to radiation, no special genetic traits that would explain their survival. They were, by all scientific measures, one of the most ordinary species in the galaxy. Yet, here was their ship, sitting safely in a place where the most advanced civilizations could not go. As the hours passed, more ships arrived at the monitoring station. Scientists, military officers, and government officials from a dozen species came to see the impossible sight for themselves. The small monitoring station became the center of the greatest mystery the galaxy had seen in centuries. The human ship continued to drift in the Forbidden Zone, its crew waiting for rescue that might never come. And in the depths of space around them, ancient machines that had slept for millennia began to stir, responding to signals that no living being could detect or understand. Something was happening in the Forbidden Zone, something that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans, progenitors, and the true history of the stars. News of the human ship in the Forbidden Zone reached the galactic hegemony capital within 12 hours. Fleet Admiral Korthak, one of the most respected military leaders in the galaxy, received the report while reviewing battle plans for a different crisis. When he read the initial data, he thought someone was playing a joke on him. Admiral Korthak was an old Saurian warrior who had fought in 3 major galactic wars. He had seen impossible things before, but this was beyond impossible. He immediately called for an emergency meeting of the Galactic Defense Council. The council chamber was a massive room that could hold representatives from dozens of different species. Within hours, ships were arriving from across the galaxy carrying scientists, military experts, and government officials. Everyone wanted to understand how humans had achieved what no other species could do. Dr. Lissa Andra arrived on the fastest ship she could find. She was an ethereal, a race of beings who looked like they were made of glowing mist. Ethereals were known for being the galaxy's best scientists, especially when it came to studying ancient technology. Dr. Lysiandra had spent her entire life studying the progenitors and their mysterious artifacts. This changes everything we know, Dr. Lysiandra told the assembled council members. Her form flickered with nervous energy as she spoke. The Forbidden Zone is not just dangerous. It is actively hostile to life. The progenitor machines there do not simply destroy ships. They tear apart the very fabric of space and time itself. She brought up holographic displays showing the energy patterns from various progenitor sites across the galaxy. Each site showed the same thing: massive energy fields that could unmake matter at the quantum level. No known technology could protect against these weapons. Every probe we have sent into progenitor sites has been destroyed, Dr. Lysandra continued. The machines do not just shoot at intruders. They seem to rewrite the laws of physics in the local area, making it impossible for normal matter to exist there. General Thexvar, the military representative from the Christek Union, asked the question everyone was thinking. So, how are the humans still alive? Dr. Lysandra's form dimmed with uncertainty. I do not know. By all our understanding of progenitor technology, their ship should have been destroyed the moment it entered the zone. The fact that it survived suggests either our understanding is completely wrong or humans possess some quality we have never detected. The Council began reviewing everything they knew about humans. The species had been discovered about 100 years ago when their radio signals were detected by a routine patrol. First contact had been peaceful, and humans had been welcomed into galactic society as junior members. Humans came from a planet called Earth in a small star system near the edge of the galaxy. Their world was unremarkable, not too hot, not too cold, with plenty of water and a normal atmosphere. The humans themselves seemed equally ordinary. They had no psychic abilities, no natural armor or weapons, and no unusual resistance to radiation or energy fields. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. They had only recently learned to travel between stars, and even then they needed to use the relay gates built by other species. Their weapons were basic projectile and energy systems that would be useless against any serious military force. Yet, somehow, a simple human cargo ship was sitting unharmed in the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Xenobiologist Kethvar presented his analysis of human biology to the Council. Kethvar was an insectoid, a race that looked like giant intelligent ants. His species was known for their detailed scientific methods and careful research. Humans are biologically unremarkable, Kethvar reported, his antenna twitching as he spoke. Their DNA follows standard patterns found in many species. Their brain structure is typical for a thinking species. Their cellular composition shows no unusual properties. There is nothing in their biology that would explain survival in a progenitor zone. The Council spent hours debating possible explanations. Some suggested that humans might have secret technology they had hidden from the galaxy. Others proposed that the readings were wrong and the ship was actually some kind of advanced hologram or illusion. A few Council members suggested something more disturbing, that humans might be descended from the progenitors themselves. This idea was quickly dismissed because humans showed no signs of advanced technology or knowledge. If they were related to the progenitors, they would surely know how to use progenitor artifacts. Meanwhile, at the monitoring station, attempts to contact the human ship continued to fail. The energy interference from the Forbidden Zone blocked all communication attempts. Long-range scanners could detect life signs aboard the ship. At least 3 or 4 humans were still alive. But there was no way to talk to them or learn what had happened. Every probe sent toward the Forbidden Zone was destroyed within minutes of crossing the boundary. The progenitor defenses worked exactly as they always had, tearing apart anything that approached. Yet the human ship remained untouched. Dr. Lysandra requested permission to bring her most advanced scanning equipment to the monitoring station. She wanted to study the energy patterns around the human ship in detail. Perhaps there was something unique about that particular area of the Forbidden Zone. The Void Walkers also sent a representative, which surprised everyone. The Void Walkers were an ancient and mysterious species that rarely showed interest in anything. They lived in the empty spaces between stars and only contacted other species when something truly important was happening. Their presence meant this situation was more serious than anyone realized. The Voidwalker representative was called Silent Song, which was the closest translation their language had to a name. Like all Voidwalkers, Silent Song appeared as a dark shape that seemed to absorb light. When Silent Song spoke, it was through a mechanical translator that turned their thoughts into words other species could understand. "The humans have touched something that should not be touched," Silent Song said to the assembled scientists. "The old barriers weaken, the ancient guardians stir. This is not a rescue mission. This is the beginning of something much larger." Nobody asked Silent Song to explain what they meant. Voidwalkers never gave direct answers, and asking too many questions usually made them leave. As more experts arrived at the monitoring station, the situation became more tense. Several species began positioning military ships near the Forbidden Zone, claiming they were there to help with the rescue, but everyone knew they were really there to protect themselves if something went wrong. The human government on Earth was contacted about the situation. Human officials expressed concern for their missing citizens, but seemed as confused as everyone else about how their ship had survived in the Forbidden Zone. They insisted that the Lucky Break was carrying only normal cargo and had no special equipment or weapons. Dr. Korthak studied star charts showing the location of every known progenitor site in the galaxy. There were hundreds of them, scattered across dozens of star systems. All of them were heavily guarded and forbidden to everyone. If humans could somehow enter these sites safely, it would give them access to technology beyond imagination. The thought frightened many species. Humans were already expanding rapidly across the galaxy despite their primitive technology. If they gained access to progenitor artifacts, they could become the dominant species within a few generations. As the first day of the crisis ended, one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same. The discovery of the human ship had raised questions that challenged everything the major species thought they knew about themselves, about humans, and about the mysterious progenitors who had vanished so long ago. In the depths of the Forbidden Zone, the human ship continued to drift peacefully among forces that should have destroyed it instantly, and throughout the galaxy, ancient progenitor sites began showing increased energy readings, as if they were all responding to some signal that only they could detect. 3 days after the discovery of the human ship, Admiral Korthak made a decision that shocked the entire galaxy. Despite protests from dozens of species and direct orders from the Galactic Council to wait for more information, he authorized a rescue mission into the Forbidden Zone. The decision caused enormous controversy. Many species argued that risking valuable ships and trained crew members to save a few humans was foolish and wasteful. The Hegemony Council held emergency sessions demanding that the Admiral reconsider his order, but Admiral Korthak refused to change his mind. "We do not abandon people who need help," the Admiral announced during a heated council meeting. "Whether they are human, saurian, or any other species, we have a duty to attempt rescue when possible. Besides, we need to understand how they survived. This information could be vital to our understanding of progenitor technology." The truth was that Admiral Korthak had another reason for authorizing the mission. Reports were coming in from monitoring stations across the galaxy that progenitor sites everywhere were becoming more active. Ancient machines that had been silent for thousands of years were powering up. Energy readings were increasing at sites that had been dormant since before recorded history. Something about the human ship in the Forbidden Zone was causing a galaxy-wide reaction from progenitor technology. If this continued, it might trigger events that could threaten every living species. The Admiral believed they needed to understand what was happening before it was too late. Since the mission was officially unauthorized and extremely dangerous, Admiral Korthak could only ask for volunteers. To his surprise, he received more applications than he expected. Captain Zethara of the warship Inevitable Justice volunteered immediately. She had been the first to receive the reports about the human ship, and her curiosity had grown stronger each day. Her ship was one of the most advanced in the fleet, equipped with the best shields and weapons available. Dr. Lysandra volunteered to take her research vessel, Deeper Understanding, on the mission. Her ship was not built for combat, but it carried the most sophisticated scanning equipment in the galaxy. If anyone could figure out how the humans were surviving, it would be her. The most surprising volunteer came from the Void Walkers. Silent, Song requested permission to accompany the mission in a small diplomatic ship. This was almost unprecedented. Void Walkers rarely involved themselves directly in the affairs of other species. Their participation meant they believed something of enormous importance was happening. The rescue fleet was small by necessity. Too many ships might trigger stronger responses from the progenitor defenses. The plan was simple: approach the Forbidden Zone carefully, locate the human ship, and attempt to either communicate with the crew or evacuate them. As the three ships prepared to depart, Dr. Lysandra briefed the mission teams on what they might encounter. Her holographic displays showed energy readings from the Forbidden Zone that made even experienced space travelers nervous. The progenitor machines do not operate by the same physical laws we understand, she explained to the assembled crews. They seem to exist partially outside normal space-time. Their weapons can target specific quantum signatures, meaning they can destroy one ship while leaving another completely unharmed. She paused to let this information sink in. We do not know why they are not attacking the human ship. This could mean they have classified humans as non-threatening, or it could mean something else entirely. We must be prepared for any possibility. The rescue fleet departed from the monitoring station exactly 72 hours after the human ship was first detected. As they traveled toward the Forbidden Zone, the crews noticed that space itself seemed different. Stars appeared to flicker and shift position slightly. Navigation equipment gave inconsistent readings. Several crew members reported strange dreams, even while awake. Senior Scanner Vexhi, who had volunteered to join the mission aboard the Inevitable Justice, monitored his instruments carefully as they approached the zone boundary. What he saw made his 4 eyes widen with alarm. "Captain," Vexhi reported, "the human ship is moving." On the main display, the lucky break was indeed changing position, but not under its own power. The ship appeared to be drifting deeper into the nebula, drawn by forces that registered on no known sensors. Whatever controlled the Forbidden Zone was slowly pulling the human ship toward its center. "Increase speed," Captain Zethara ordered. "We need to reach them before they drift too far into the zone." As the rescue fleet approached the boundary of the Forbidden Zone, they followed strict protocols developed over centuries of studying. Progenitor sites. All weapons were powered down to minimal levels. Engines were set to produce the smallest possible energy signature. Communication systems were switched to passive mode only. The idea was to make themselves as unnoticeable as possible. Previous attempts to enter progenitor zones had failed because the defense systems detected ships and classified them as threats. By minimizing their energy output, the rescue fleet hoped to slip past the ancient guardians unnoticed. The boundary of the Forbidden Zone was marked by a wall of swirling energy that stretched across hundreds of kilometers. As the ships approached this barrier, every crew member held their breath. This was the point where so many other expeditions had been destroyed. The Inevitable Justice crossed the boundary first. Captain Zethara watched her instruments carefully, expecting alarms to sound at any moment, but nothing happened. The ship passed through the energy wall as if it was not there. Dr. Lysandra's research vessel followed, then Silent Song's diplomatic ship. All 3 vessels entered the Forbidden Zone without any reaction from the progenitor defenses. It was as if the ancient guardians had simply decided to ignore them. "This is impossible," Dr. Lysandra reported over the communication channel. "My instruments show that the defense systems are fully active. They should have detected us immediately. Something is protecting us." Inside the Forbidden Zone, the rescue fleet found themselves in a realm that seemed to exist outside normal physics. Space was filled with structures that appeared to be made of crystallized energy. Geometric patterns of light drifted through the void like living things. In the distance, massive progenitor installations hung in space, their purposes unknown and unknowable. The human ship was easier to locate now. Its metal hull stood out sharply against the ethereal background of the zone. As the rescue fleet approached, they could see that the Lucky Break was indeed badly damaged. Scorch marks covered its hull, and several sections showed signs of weapon impacts. But the ship was intact and still broadcasting its distress signal. Life support systems were functioning, and the crew was still alive inside. "Prepare boarding shuttles," Captain Zethara ordered. "We need to evacuate the human crew before something changes and the defenses decide to target us." As the rescue ships moved closer to the Lucky Break, Dr. Lysandra's instruments detected something that made her form flicker with excitement and fear. "Captain," she reported, "I am reading massive energy buildups throughout the zone. The progenitor installations are powering up systems that have been dormant for millennia. Whatever allowed us to enter safely, it appears to be triggering a much larger response." Throughout the Forbidden Zone, ancient machines were awakening. Structures that had been dark for thousands of years began to glow with internal light. Energy patterns that had never been recorded by any species started flowing between the installations. The rescue fleet had succeeded in reaching the human ship, but they had also triggered something that no one understood. Deep in the heart of the zone, something vast and ancient was stirring to life, and its attention was focused on the small human freighter that had somehow survived where all others had failed. The rescue mission was about to become something much more significant than anyone had planned. The secrets of the Forbidden Zone were finally beginning to reveal themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Sarah Chen had been watching the alien ships approach through the cracked viewport of the Lucky Break for the past hour. After 6 months trapped in the Forbidden Zone, she had almost given up hope of rescue. Now 3 ships were carefully moving toward her damaged freighter, and she could hardly believe they were real. Sarah was a typical human cargo hauler, middle-aged, practical, and used to dealing with mechanical problems rather than galactic mysteries. Her crew consisted of her engineer Mike Torres and navigator Lisa Park. All 3 had volunteered for this mission because it paid well, not because they wanted to make history. 6 months ago, they had been making a routine cargo run between human colonies when their experimental jump drive malfunctioned. The drive was supposed to cut their travel time in half, but instead it had deposited them in what their computer cheerfully called an unknown region of space. What happened next had been the most terrifying experience of Sarah's life. The moment they appeared in the Forbidden Zone, every alarm on the ship started screaming. Weapons that seemed to be made of pure energy began targeting their ship, trying to tear it apart at the molecular level. Sarah had done the only thing she could think of. She ordered full power to the shields and tried to find somewhere to hide. But the Lucky Break was not a warship. It was a civilian cargo hauler with basic defenses. The alien weapons should have destroyed them in seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. The weapons suddenly stopped firing. Now, as Captain Zethara's boarding shuttle approached the Lucky Break, Sarah prepared to finally learn what had happened to them. She activated the ship's external communication system and tried to contact the rescue fleet. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth cargo vessel Lucky Break," she transmitted. "We have been trapped here for 6 months and are in need of immediate assistance. Our life support systems are failing, and we have limited food and water remaining." The response came from Captain Zethara aboard the shuttle. "Captain Chen, this is Captain Zethara of the Galactic Hegemony vessel Inevitable Justice. We are here to evacuate you and your crew. Please prepare for emergency boarding procedures." Within an hour, Sarah and her crew were aboard the Inevitable Justice, receiving medical attention and being questioned by experts from a dozen different species. Dr. Lysandra was particularly interested in their story, and her glowing form flickered with excitement as Sarah described what had happened. "You say the weapons stopped firing suddenly?" Dr. Lysandra asked. "Did you do anything to cause this? Did you activate any special equipment or send any signals? Sarah shook her head. We did not do anything. One moment we were about to be destroyed, and the next moment everything went quiet. The weapons just turned off. Mike Torres, the ship's engineer, had been studying the Lucky Break's sensor logs during their months in the zone. He presented his findings to the assembled scientists with nervous excitement. According to our instruments, Mike explained, the alien weapons did hit us, multiple times, but instead of destroying the ship, they seemed to scan us, like they were trying to figure out what we were. He brought up holographic displays showing the weapon impacts. Each hit was different. First they targeted our hull, then our engines, then our life support systems. But instead of doing damage, each scan seemed to make the weapons less aggressive. Dr. Lisa Andra studied the data with growing amazement. These are progenitor analysis beams, she said. They are designed to examine the quantum signature of any ship or crew that enters a protected zone. Based on what they find, the defense systems decide whether to destroy the intruder or allow them to pass. Lisa Park, the navigator, raised her hand hesitantly. Excuse me, but what are progenitors, and why would they care about us? The question caused an uncomfortable silence among the alien scientists. Dr. Lisa Andra's form dimmed as she considered how to answer. The progenitors were an ancient race that built most of the advanced technology in this galaxy, she finally explained. They disappeared millions of years ago, leaving behind automated systems that guard their installations. These systems are programmed to eliminate any threats to progenitor sites. She paused, looking directly at Sarah and her crew. The fact that they did not eliminate you suggests something extraordinary. According to the analysis beams, you are not considered threats. In fact, the readings suggest something that should be impossible. Captain Zeth Ara leaned forward in her chair. What do the readings suggest, Doctor? Dr. Lisa Andra's form flickered, nervously. The progenitor systems have classified the human crew as progenitors themselves. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Every person in the room stared at the three humans, who looked back with confusion and disbelief. That is impossible, Captain Zethera said firmly. Humans are a young species. They have no advanced technology, no knowledge of progenitor systems. They cannot be progenitors. But Dr. Lisa Andra was already running new scans on the human crew members. Her equipment was far more advanced than anything on the Lucky Break, and the results it produced were disturbing. The quantum signatures match, she reported, her voice filled with wonder and fear. Not similar. Identical. According to every test I can run, these humans are genetically and quantum mechanically the same as the progenitor samples we have on file. Mike Torres looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. I do not understand, he said. Are you saying we are aliens? Because I was definitely born on Earth in a normal human hospital to normal human parents. Silent Song, the Void Walker representative, spoke for the first time since boarding the ship. The mechanical translator made their words sound flat and emotionless, but the content was anything but calm. The patterns repeat, Silent Song said. The ancient cycle begins again. The sleepers wake. The guardians remember their purpose. Dr. Lacey Andra turned to the mysterious alien. What do you mean? What cycle? But Silent Song had already turned away and would not answer any more questions. Dr. Lisa Andra continued her analysis of the human crew, but every test confirmed the same impossible result. By every measure available to galactic science, Sarah Chen, Mike Torres, and Lisa Park were identical to the progenitors who had built the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. This explains why you were not destroyed, Dr. Lisa Andra told them. The defense systems recognized you as their creators. They were programmed to protect you, not eliminate you. Sarah felt overwhelmed by the implications. But we do not know anything about this technology. We have never seen these machines before. How can we be the same as beings who disappeared millions of years ago? It was a question that Dr. Lysandra could not answer. The evidence was clear, but it made no sense according to everything the galaxy knew about human history. As the rescue fleet prepared to leave the Forbidden Zone, more disturbing discoveries came to light. The progenitor installations throughout the zone were not just powering up. They were trying to communicate. Ancient transmission systems were sending signals toward Earth and every other human world in the galaxy. Whatever the presence of humans in the Forbidden Zone had awakened, it was now attempting to contact the rest of humanity. After millions of years of silence, the progenitor machines were trying to resume contact with their creators. The implications terrified every species in the galaxy. If humans really were progenitors, then the most primitive species in galactic civilization was actually the most advanced. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was about to be completely overturned. As the Lucky Break was taken in tow by the rescue fleet, Sarah looked back at the Forbidden Zone through the viewport. Ancient structures were glowing with new energy, and patterns of light were moving between them like the neurons in a vast mechanical brain. Something that had slept for millions of years was waking up, and it recognized her as family. The thought was both wonderful and terrifying. Sarah had joined this mission to earn money for her family back on Earth. Instead, she had stumbled into a mystery that would change the fate of every living being in the galaxy. Behind them, the Forbidden Zone continued to pulse with increasing energy, and across the galaxy, other progenitor sites began to respond to signals that only they could understand. The journey back to civilized space took 3 days, but news of the discovery leaked within hours. Despite Admiral Korthak's attempts to maintain secrecy, word spread throughout the galaxy that humans were somehow connected to the progenitors. By the time the rescue fleet reached the monitoring station, representatives from dozens of species were already waiting for them. Captain Sarah Chen found herself at the center of attention she never wanted. Every major news network in the galaxy wanted to interview her. Scientists demanded to study her and her crew. Government officials asked endless questions about Earth's history and human technology. Sarah tried to explain that she was just a cargo pilot who had gotten lost, but nobody seemed to believe her. The idea that humans might be the inheritors of the galaxy's most advanced civilization was too important to ignore. The immediate effects were felt across human space. Human colonies that had been treated as minor outposts suddenly found themselves under intense scrutiny. Some alien species began viewing humans as a potential threat, while others tried to form closer diplomatic relationships. The galactic hegemony faced an uncomfortable reality. For over a century, they had treated humans as junior partners in galactic civilization. Now it appeared that humans might actually be the senior partners, with a claim to technology that predated every other known species. Admiral Korthak called an emergency session of the Galactic Council to discuss the implications. The debate that followed was heated and sometimes angry, with different species taking very different positions on what the discovery meant. The Christek Union demanded that humans be immediately granted access to all progenitor sites so they could reclaim their inheritance. The Ethereal Coalition argued that humans should be studied extensively before any decisions were made. The Saurian hegemony wanted to restrict human access to progenitor technology until its safety could be guaranteed. Some species suggested something much more disturbing. If humans really were progenitors, what had caused them to lose their technology and knowledge? Had there been some kind of disaster that forced them to restart their civilization from the beginning? And if so, could it happen again? Dr. Lysandra spent weeks studying the data from the Forbidden Zone, trying to understand what had happened. Her research revealed disturbing patterns in progenitor sites across the galaxy. Every major progenitor installation shows signs of a deliberate shutdown, she reported to the council. The technology was not destroyed or damaged. It was carefully deactivated and placed in a preservation mode. She brought up holographic displays showing dozens of progenitor sites. The timing suggests a galaxy-wide evacuation that occurred approximately 2 million years ago. Whatever caused the progenitors to abandon their technology, it was serious enough that they were willing to give up everything they had built. The implications were terrifying. If the progenitors had abandoned their technology to escape some threat, what would happen when that technology began working again? And what had become of the progenitors themselves? Dr. Lysandra's research suggested an answer that no one wanted to hear. Based on the evidence, I believe the progenitors did not actually disappear. They deliberately reduced themselves to a primitive state and scattered across the galaxy to avoid detection. She looked directly at the human representatives in the chamber. Humans may not be descended from progenitors. They may actually be progenitors who chose to forget their own history. Captain Sarah Chen was still trying to process this information when it became clear that the situation was getting worse. Human ships had begun visiting previously forbidden progenitor sites, and the ancient defenses were allowing them to pass. Each visit caused more progenitor technology to activate. Reports came in from across the galaxy of ancient machines awakening, energy patterns appearing where none had existed for millennia, and structures that had been dormant for millions of years beginning to show signs of activity. The Void Walkers, through Silent Song, provided the most disturbing information of all. The Great Hiding is ending, Silent Song announced to the Council. The Sleepers wake. The ancient enemy stirs in the spaces between galaxies. When pressed for more details, Silent Song would only say that the progenitors had gone into hiding to avoid something that was not of this reality. The awakening of progenitor technology was sending signals across vast distances, potentially alerting this enemy to the location of the galaxy. As weeks passed, the effects of human contact with progenitor sites became more pronounced. Human crews reported strange dreams when near active progenitor installations. Some began demonstrating knowledge of technologies they had never learned. A few started speaking in languages that no human linguist could identify, but that matched linguistic patterns found in progenitor ruins. The situation reached a crisis point when a human exploration team on a distant world accidentally activated a progenitor manufacturing facility. The facility began producing devices that no one could identify, using principles that violated known physics. When alien scientists tried to study the devices, they found that only humans could operate them safely. Fear spread throughout the galaxy. Other species began to realize that humanity's humble appearance might be a facade. If humans really were progenitors, their friendly and cooperative behavior could be an act designed to lull other species into a false sense of security. Some extremist groups among various species began calling for preemptive action against humanity before they could fully reclaim their ancient power. These groups argued that once humans regained access to progenitor technology, they would dominate or eliminate all other life in the galaxy. The human government on Earth tried to calm these fears by offering to share any progenitor technology they discovered, but this only made other species more nervous. Why would the most advanced species in galactic history offer to share their technology unless they had some hidden agenda? Captain Sarah Chen watched these developments with growing concern. She had become an unwilling symbol of humanity's connection to the progenitors, and she received death threats from extremist groups almost daily. Her simple cargo run had turned into the most significant discovery in galactic history, and she wasn't sure she could handle the responsibility. The Lucky Break itself was moved to a classified research facility where scientists studied every component, looking for clues about how it had survived in the Forbidden Zone. But the ship remained stubbornly ordinary, an aging cargo hauler with no exotic modifications or hidden technology. Dr. Lysandra's continued research revealed more disturbing patterns. Progenitor sites across the galaxy were not just activating randomly, they were following a specific sequence, as if some vast program was slowly coming online. Each activation triggered responses from other sites. creating a network of communication that spanned the entire galaxy. "It's like watching a giant computer wake up," Dr. Lysiandra explained to Admiral Korthak. "Each progenitor site is a component in a larger system, and the system is becoming operational again." The Admiral asked the question everyone was afraid to voice. "What happens when the system is fully operational?" Dr. Lysiandra's form flickered with uncertainty. "I don't know, but based on the energy levels we're detecting, whatever this system was designed to do, it operates on a scale that could affect the entire galaxy." As the crisis deepened, humanity found itself in an impossible position. They were being blamed for awakening forces they didn't understand, pressured to take responsibility for technology they couldn't control, and expected to have answers to questions they had never thought to ask. Sarah Chen often found herself staring at the stars, wondering what her ancestors had been thinking when they chose to forget their own history. Had they been trying to protect the galaxy from something, or had they been protecting something from the galaxy? In the depths of space, ancient machines continued their patient work, following programs written millions of years ago by beings who had chosen to become human. The Forbidden Zone pulsed with increasing energy, and across the galaxy, other progenitor sites responded to signals that carried messages no living being could understand. The galaxy stood at the edge of a new age, but no one knew whether it would be an age of wonder or terror. The only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity had reclaimed its birthright, but the price of that inheritance was still being calculated. In the end, the most frightening thing was not what humans might become, but what they had been running from for so long, and whether it was still out there, waiting for them to remember who they really were.